when you talk about high-tech businesses and building high-tech businesses, Israel is not a place which is going to sell a lot of stuff to consumers, not a lot of stuff to the people in this room. It's going to be a place that solves a lot of problems for businesses. It's a solutions engine. Netanyahu was trying to give us a conception of the Israeli economy which is kind of curiously hardline and hip at the same time. But what he wasn't understanding, which for a former consultant at the Boston Consulting Group was kind of depressing, is that people who are building solutions for other companies have to have very deep, abiding relationships with those companies. You need to have access to the product development plans of companies. You need to be able to get references from other people you've worked with. And most important, you need to be able to tell them that, 2 years from now, when your solution is coming online, you are going to still be around. Now, Israel has had a lot of successes. I've chronicled them. I believe in them. I'm fascinated by them. A lot of successes in the process of globalization. But Israel needs rates of growth that are much higher than the things that Israeli politicians like to, chirp about, which is OECD averages. Oh, we're just about at where the OECD is. We're maybe a little higher. Israel has to have an economy like Singapore. It has to have tremendous growth rates because it is a country in which, and I can just tick these off, a fifth of its budget goes to the military. It only has a 56% participation rate in the economy because of the Haredi population, the marginalization of Israeli Arabs. Japan is 68%. Israel is 56% and declining. A third of Israel's children are under the poverty line. Its national debt is about 75% of its GDP, which means that if it were invited to the European Union, if it could entertain the idea of entering the European Union, it actually wouldn't be permitted because 60% is the threshold for the Maastricht Treaty. And you can go on. And as a result, Israel's government is eating its seed corn right now. I happen to be married to a university professor, and I'm teaching at the Hebrew University. Everybody who knows Israeli education knows that as compared to 20 years ago, it is a disgrace. And the Israeli system is simply not creating for itself the engines that are going to bring it ahead 20 years from now. On the contrary, the fact that the algorithms that the kids learn in Shmona Matayim, are so much between their heads. Shmona Matayim is the famous unit of the army which does basic computer software research. It's out of which Checkpoint Software and all of these other interesting startups started. The fact that these kids carry the stuff around with their heads is precisely why they're now living in Santa Clara. And we simply have to get it through our heads. We have to start carrying around in our heads an understanding that without peace, without integration as opposed to diplomatic isolation, Israel's high-tech businesses are going to wither on the vine. You cannot eat algorithms. One last point, because I think it's often misunderstood. We get a little glib about this thing when we talk about this two-state solution. I remember Tom Friedman about, 10 years ago, started talking, or even 15 years ago, started talking about the necessity of Jews and Arabs, Palestinians and Israelis, to get a divorce. And this has been a kind of conceit of the conversation ever since. Dysfunctional family, we need a divorce. No. No. Palestine and Israel together will be nodes in a global network, and they will be nodes in a regional network. And what we need to start talking about is integration. If you start ticking off all the jurisdictions that states have for the purpose of creating an economy, bandwidth, telecommunications bandwidth, water resources, currency, labor migration, airspace, healthcare and disease control, roads and bridges, also defense, there's no jurisdiction that the state of Israel is going to be able to exercise in the future without a very deep cooperation with the Palestinian state and Jordan. So we start talking about a two-state solution. Obviously, both sides are trying to preserve, for absolutely great reasons, are trying to preserve the poignancy of the national cultural life and are trying to preserve distinction through political apparatus. Obviously, that's the reason for a two-state solution, when all other reasons fall away. But a two-state solution is really a three-state solution. Common market with Jordan. It's really a 20-state solution because it means developing a relationship with the countries of the Mediterranean through a Sarkozy-like European Union. We have to begin to understand that Israel is not a nation that dwells alone.
Thank you, Bernard.
During the year of 2000, during 12 months, since October backward, we lost only one Israeli citizen as a result of terror. This was the most peaceful year that we knew since we conquered or liberated the West Bank. How could we do it? Some people will tell you that it was the Shin Bet. Well, I was a director, and I'm telling you that not quite. If you will ask Bibi Netanyahu, he will tell you that it was him as a prime minister. And if you will ask Ehud Barak, he will tell you that it was him as a prime minister. Well, the truth is somewhere else. We analyzed it every month. And we came to a very, very strange, to me, lessons. By the way, when I found out, I remember I gave a lecture and I came back home and I told my wife that I have the solution. And she said, well, I know it for the last 40 years. And I told her, first of all, for military people, it takes more time to understand. And second, you know it, but I see it happening. We live it. And this is the lesson. We saw a very interesting correlation between, in a way, three factors. One is hope, or in other words, the support of the Palestinian street in the peace process, which influenced, first, the terror policy executed by Hamas, and second, the security policy executed by Palestinian Authority, or in other words, the security organizations of the Palestinians. And I want to explain you. The support of the Palestinian street in the peace process was measured every month. For me, it was a very, very important source of intelligence. By the way, most of the polls were made by Halil Shkaki, Dr. Halil Shkaki, we became very good friends after I left the Shin Bet. And when I told him that his polls were a very good source of intelligence, of course, I'm not sure he liked it. But anyhow, Palestinians want something very simple. They want to see the end of Israeli occupation. They call it Palestinian freedom. They want to have better education, better economy, etc., etc. And if they believe that they will get it using diplomacy, which means peace process, they will be against terror. So, the higher was the support of the Palestinian street in the peace process. Hamas used less terror. And a word about Hamas. We have to understand, we see Hamas as a terror organization. And it is. Hamas is a terror organization, but it is not only a terror organization. They have Azadin al-Qassam, yes, the military wing. But Hamas is an ideology, they have a political wing, charity, education, etc. Hamas is an alternative to diplomacy. If Palestinians do not believe in peace process because they do not see a viable peace process, they will support Hamas. By the way, Sheikh Yassin, every meeting when he discussed terror policy, he asked his people what the imams in the mosques will say. What will be their reaction? Because the imams are the connection between the people in the street and Hamas organization. And they reduced the attempts to use terror if Palestinians do not support it because they supported the peace process. And in addition, on top of it, I used to meet Jibril Rajoub, Mohammed Ahlan, and Amin al-Hindi every day, the heads of the Palestinian security organizations. And they used to tell me, listen, we are not your collaborators. We are fighting Hamas not because you are giving us an order. You will not. You are not paying our salary. We are doing it because we feel that in the end of the road, we shall have our freedom, end of occupation, etc., etc. The moment that we shall not feel it, forget about it. And we have to understand, as long as they are fighting Hamas, at that time, by the way, there were more Hamas activists in Palestinian jail than in our jails. We cooperated. We shared information. We executed operations together. We fought Hamas together. As long as we are fighting together Hamas, and in parallel, there is a peace process, a viable peace process, they are perceived among their people as freedom fighters. If there is no peace process in parallel, they are perceived as Israeli collaborators. And they will not be Israeli collaborators. And in a way, this is the whole lesson, in a nutshell. Security for us means hope for the Palestinians.
Thank you, Amin.
The answer to the why two-state solution now is very simple. Because of the alternative. If we will not reach a solution based on two-state solution, the end will be very soon. It will be one-state solution, and that's mean the end of Israel as a Jewish and a democratic state. These are the alternative. And when somebody is saying that he wants a two-state solution, but he is in favor of status quo, he is not in a hurry, it means that the one-state solution is behind the corner. September 1st, this year, between the sea and the Jordan River, more Palestinian student pupils starred the A grade than Jewish one. This fact is very clear. That means in 5, 10 years from now, it will be a clear majority of Palestinians between the sea and the Jordan River. That means it will be in Greater Israel a Palestinian majority. And then, and this is a major trend now among the Palestinians, they will come to the Capitol Hill, maybe to J Street when you celebrate 10 years from now, a decade of Congress. And they will say, very simple, we are against terrorism. We want to live together with Israel, not side by side, but together with each other. We want one person, one vote. Mandela, when he demanded, he was praised by everybody, especially here. What will be the answer? Why not? So, if you're really a Zionist, your main concern is that to create the two-state solution. It's meant to bring, it's more than that. The two-state solution is a wonderful solution, but the most important solution for the existence of Israel as a Jewish and a democratic state is the end of the occupation. If we will not bring the end of the occupation will bring the end of the state of Israel as a Jewish and a democratic state. This is all the truth of the present situation. And therefore, the major enemy of the state of Israel is the status quo situation. This is the major one. When Prime Minister Netanyahu is saying, I pay my dues when I spoke in Bar Ilan, now President Abbas, Abu Mazen, this is his turn. Okay, wonderful. And if he will not respond, wonderful, status quo. Prime Minister Netanyahu is saying, I demand that the Palestinian will recognize Israel as a Jewish state. Great. And if not, no peace, nothing, status quo. But status quo is not the enemy of the Palestinian. Status quo is the enemy of the Jewish state. This is the problem. Because the Palestinian has two options. They have the option of two-state solution, but they have also the option of one-state solution. We have only one option, a two-state solution, because if we want to maintain Israel as a Jewish and a democratic state, we cannot annex de facto, and that's what we are doing, de facto, the territories and 3 million people that are living there. That's we can't do. Because of an Israeli interest, because of a Zionist interest. Not because President Obama is asking us, not because the Arabs are pressuring us, or because the Palestinians are threatening us. This is not the situation. This is our own motivation. So, what we have to do is to make clear, first of all to ourselves, not to the international community, not to the international community, neither to the Palestinian and Arab war, to ourselves, that we will not remain in the occupied territories. And we will do our best to maintain Israel Jewish and democratic.